Hello, my name is Craig Otto, and today I'm going to talk to you about a visual management tool. And basically, when you think of visual management, you probably basically think of scoreboards. We see it a lot in sports, and you have to ask yourself, what purpose does it serve? Well, it of course it tells us whether we're winning or losing, and that's a very important thing when you're trying to communicate to the workforce their expectations and whether they're meeting those expectations. And when you don't have one, then basically what ends up happening is you kind of lose the whole system, and you don't know where you're at, and you don't know if you're doing good or bad or indifferent. So it's very important to have a scoreboard, and it's also, as you'll find as I go through this, I also don't want to lose the fact that visual management is also about bringing things to the surface, bringing problems or issues to the surface. So, think about the instrument control panel in your car. What does that purpose does that serve? Well, it's kind of letting you know where the car is at in terms of all of its key indicators. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't know if part of the system of the car was going down. In other words, if you didn't have fuel or your oil was not good or your service engine soon came light on or your check engine soon. And there's several other ones that light up to let you know before something instrumental or catastrophe happens to your vehicle. It tries to prevent that. So, those are day-to-day visual controls that you see. And when we talk about visual controls, that's also what we're going for in our factory settings. Maybe if you're doing lean in the healthcare world, it's the same thing. You want to know whether you're winning or losing in your process. So, visual management, kind of defining it here, providing information about processes and basic daily functions in a visual, coherent, timely, and regular manner. And really, it's used to improve performance. It's sort of the old saying, "What gets measured gets done." I think there's a lot of truth to that. And then also displaying the performance data and the goals so that it's not hidden. A lot of times you get information on reports. Well, those aren't very easily displayed for people to understand in a report manner. What you have to do is make it visual so that they understand and it compels them. Okay, some of the benefits. First of all, when you have things that are clear and simple, you can understand where you're at and also make better decisions. Another thing it does is it helps you improve communication. It again, this is the one I talked about in the beginning of the presentation. It's the abnormalities. It helps you solve problems, helps you improve those responses to those abnormalities, helps increase awareness of what waste is of the process, and it also helps assist with the cultural changes. Just by people knowing where they're at and how they're doing to expectations, that alone is a big step in the right direction. Some keys to success, the again another age-old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So the more things you can put out there on the factory floor, or if you're in a healthcare setting, or if you're in a service setting, the more information you have, the better. And the more simplified and concise that information is, the better. And it should also be, as we talk these visual displays and controls, they should also be a part of your lean tools and application. Things like standard work. How do you get that up and make sure it's visual? Our standard work charts, combination tables, and so forth. All of those lean tools need to be visually displayed. And it starts with, even at the very beginning, when you start talking about an event team and setting up their event charter and making sure that all of that is reviewed and it's available to team members. Visual control should be just-in-time information. So in other words, I don't want to see my success score. That's the latest one that's posted is from a year ago. That does me no good. It needs to be just in time with the right information I need to know right now. And because if it's not, you may be acting on something that's not even relevant anymore. So ensuring that the visual controls are updated regularly, that's part of that just in time. And it should also be a part of, if you have basically a continuous improvement group, they should audit those visual controls and ensure that they are up to date. Here's just an overall different types of visual controls. Storyboards, those are much like A3s, the tools that we use for an A3. Signboards, where you share vital information. Maps, those are a form of visual control. How about Kanbans, pull systems? Those are also signals. Those are visual controls. A lot of times checklists are. And then color codes or andons, if you will. Red, yellow, green lights, letting you know how the process is doing. Providing a strong, unavoidable sign or signal where it's an abnormal action, so like an alarm. Maybe you get an email for a quality alert or something where you have to go and it alarms you to go take action. So those are all types of visual controls. This is one that we use in General Dynamics, where we kind of talk about what are all the visual control elements that you can see. And in this case, there's a lot of them, obviously, with the floor markings. That's for safety. Make sure that the aisles are delineated clearly. You have the machine that has a name clearly identified. If you have multiple machines, make sure that the machines are clearly identified so that the support and maintenance can get there when needed. You see the status light. Sorry. The status light is basically the red and the green. And then also you can see an andon light, the red, yellow, green. You have the fire extinguisher there, clearly identified for safety reasons. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, the other lean tools like Standard Work, 6S, all of those use visual controls. And then, of course, displaying expectations of performance and sharing what that performance is: cost, quality, schedule, safety. Just some more examples of visual displays. And you want to make the visual displays relevant to the level of use. In other words, an operator on the floor doesn't want to see the annual report of the business, the overall business. What they want to see is how is their department doing and what they can influence. You want to make the scorecard relevant to whoever's using it. And just last slide here, visual management enables a process to manage its processes with clear indications of opportunities. So in other words, when you have visual management, the process should speak to you. It should identify when something is wrong, and you should be able to go and address those and fix those things. It should be able to show the waste. Think about inventory, the defects, scraps, downtime. All of that is waste in the process that can be identified through visual management.